we have Alyson Schill on the show. Alyson is the co-founder and CEO over at Careit. And Alyson, welcome to the show. It's just a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Earl.
Yeah, so tell us, what's Careit all about? What's your vision? What's your background? How did it all happen?
Yeah. Well, I am a trashy lady. I originally started out as a waste nerd, working in recycling and sustainability. I'm also kind of a bit of a matchmaker, and I have done a lot of work with social media, particularly using platforms to bring people and things together for activities, events, and stuff. So I kind of put all of those together when I saw that there was a need for businesses that had surplus food to find a way to bring it to the community so that it was kind of keeping what I call the nutrient economy going.
Mm, mm,
Because so much of our food, around 40% of our food is usually wasted, gone to mostly the landfill. Sometimes it's composted. But there are about at least 1 in 8 Americans who are experiencing what's called food insecurity right now, too. So if we could just put those two concepts together and say, hey, one can solve the other, and all you really need is to introduce each other, the people who have and the people that need, to each other,
mm.
and then Careit is my company that helps facilitate that. It's a free digital app that allows businesses to donate food to nonprofit organizations that feed those in need in your local community.
Great. I love the mission. I love the story. Before we go too much further in, Alison, I just want you to know I do have some interest in on a personal note, just some passion around um, just how messed up the food distribution manufacturing system is. Okay, like I've done a lot of reading on it. I know a lot about it. I've experienced my own guilt around it, like in the sense that like my business for the last 3 decades has been to help fast food companies, QSR chains, right?
Yeah.
To do more catering. Okay. And I know what goes into the manufacturing, fulfillment, distribution of those ingredients. Okay. And I've often felt, and so, I've often talked to people about, look, there's so many people just globally that don't get food. And, here in North America, we are, food is artificially cheap, even though we complain about the prices of food. Okay, it's actually inexpensive because if everybody had to get their share, it'd be like unaffordable, right? It would just be like, and unless you come up with solutions like what you're doing, because so much food ends up going in the garbage.
Hmm.
Okay, so I love what you're doing. And so how long have you been doing this for?
I started working on Carrot in 2015, but we launched officially in 2021. So it's
Okay.
been about 4 years now.
Okay. And the business model is nonprofit, or how do you
Actually, we
operate?
are a regular C corporation.
Okay.
Would love to get the B corporation status, but it takes a lot of work, and I'm
Yeah.
just plugging ahead, trying to help more people more than anything.
Right.
Um, and it's funny, I just wanted to casually mention really quick. You mentioned casual food, right? So I
Hmm.
just wanted to throw a statistic out there that 53% of fast food is thrown in the trash.
Is that at consumer point or at the restaurant point?
It's on both sides. And 66% of restaurant food is thrown in the trash. So actually a little bit more on restaurant side that is not fast food.
What about at the what about at the distribution side? Do you know that number?
Um, it's around a quarter on the
So bef
distribution side, I think.
so before it ever even gets to the restaurant or hotels or anything, the
Yeah,
distributors.
along the entire chain from the farm to the
Yeah.
distribution to
Yeah.
the wholesale retail, and then even at home. Actually, at home is where the vast majority of food is wasted. And well, I wouldn't say vast majority. At home, the largest percentage of food per those categories is
Yeah.
wasted.
Yeah, yeah. So can we talk about like what is the impact of that wasted food in terms of like in the community at the community level, like where
Yeah.
where it is that you're working, right? Trying to make impact locally, community. Like how does that impact community?
Yeah. So one of the first ways that I talk about that most people don't think about is that when food goes into a landfill, when you take food and you cover it up, have you ever like left food in a bucket and you put a lid on, you forgot about it, and then you come back 3 weeks later?
Of
The
course.
first thing that happens when you open it up is you just get this waft of just blah, noxious chemicals, right? Well, when you put food into a landfill, it's like doing that. It's putting it into a giant bucket and putting a lid over it, and you get methane gas
Mm,
that comes out of that. So what happens when you've got bacteria that don't have oxygen breaking things down? One of the byproducts that they have is methane gas. And landfills are the third largest man-made contributor to greenhouse gas emissions because of that.
mm,
So one of the quickest ways to heat up our planet and change the way that the climate systems work is to be throwing food into the landfill.
mm.
Second biggest thing that happens is we're growing the food with water, with people, with trucks, with
Of course.
fertilizer, with all these different things. So if we're throwing away around like a quarter of the food that we're growing, all of the resources that are going into that are also being thrown away. So in the state of California, where they, notoriously are experiencing droughts all the time, and they grow the vast majority of the food. Fresh water is really hard to come by, and they throw away 20% of the water used in the entire state in the form of food waste. So
Wow.
upstream, we've got these really bad things happening from food waste. And then downstream, when we throw away food, so I'm not sure if you're aware of some of the new policies that have been coming out. We have some systems in place that are kind of like a social safety net in America, where if you've fallen on hard times, you've missed a couple of bills because you had a medical procedure, you lost your job, you lost your spouse, you lost something that was keeping you afloat. There's some SNAP benefits that will
Mm,
help you from losing all access to food, but those have just been reduced greatly. And then there also are these safety nets of what we call emergency food assistance or emergency food service locations that are typically are nonprofit organizations that are our churches, our food pantries, our shelters, places that you can go to get services and a meal. Oftentimes, those places are fed through what was the USDA commodities program. That
mm.
was where farmers who were unable to sell their crop for whatever reason were able to then sell their crop at a discount to these food banks, and the food banks would then distribute those back down to these pantries so that people could have access to fresh foods.
Right.
We're no longer getting those right now. A lot of that was cut from the federal budget, and so there's a huge disproportionate number of people that need food right now and a disproportionate lower amount of food that's available for them. So we're
Right.
experiencing a major hunger crisis in the United States that's just going to keep getting worse.
Right. Right. I mean, wow, crazy stuff when you really stop to think about it. And I mean, I think a lot of it happens in the busyness of everything, right? Like people are just aren't conscious about what's the impact of their action or decision, or they're just in a rush,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Or on the clock, or they got to get something done. So tell us, let's dive in a little bit into like how do you bridge the gap then? Let's talk about that a little bit if we can, Allison. Tell us that.
Yeah, and I think it's just tale as old as time for humanity to give their abundance to people in need.
Yeah. Hmm.
In books as old as the Bible, we've got something called gleaning, where anytime you have a harvest where there's some left over at the end, you'll go through and you give all that to the poor. We've been able to help and share our neighbors on a regular basis for such a long time, but now that we're getting more and more digital and we're kind of moving less into our homes and less into our communities, it's just we have to keep up with that ability to connect back with our community members, people we may not know, people that might live next to us but that need an extra helping hand. And that's where I think Careit is really trying to bridge the gap of the fact that we're living in more of a digitized world. Now let's
Right.
digitize the ability to connect. And what I really love about what happens is that when you post a donation on Careit, you can choose as a business to drop off that food donation to them, or you can ask them to come pick it up from you.
Hmm.
When you drop it off to them, you have an opportunity now to see a new type of nonprofit, to see where it is that they're offering services. And once you get there, you might be like, hey, this is such a cool thing that you're doing. You're feeding all these people, you're helping all these people. Do you need anything else? And they might say, oh, well, I need clothes. And you're like, well, I've got a closet full of clothes back home that I never wear. And now
Right.
you find a new way to give and engage. And maybe you might want to start volunteering there. And it's just a great way to connect to a part of the community that you normally wouldn't have connected
Yeah.
with.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, besides the obvious sort of like community-based benefits of it, what are the benefits to operators? Like what's the business case? Could you give us like the no-brainer? Why wouldn't you do it? You're
Yeah.
already you're already throwing it in the garbage, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and this part I connect with less because I just get so hyped up about the environmental and social part of it. So forgive me, but
well,
uh,
also, I mean, it's critically important, but
yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
so for when you have a catered event, right, and nobody shows up and you've made all this food and you're like, oh my gosh, now it's raining outside. What am I supposed to do? Or maybe, people did show up, but like people weren't that hungry. They didn't really like the salmon dish you made or something like that. Well, now you have the opportunity to A, reduce your costs of throwing
mm,
that away because every time you fill up a trash can, you have to pay for the services of that trash can getting taken away. B, you have the ability to donate it. And what you can do when you donate it is you can actually write it off on your taxes for around about twice as much as you would have if you would have just said it was a loss, if it was just food I didn't sell or
because you get to deduct which expense, the party expense or the
you get to deduct the food expense, that your overall costs,
yeah,
because it's just like donating a car or donating
right,
any
right,
sort
right,
of
right. Okay,
material
so there's
item.
some value. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Exactly. So
okay,
you've got savings, cost savings, you've got now tax deduction, and then you
yeah,
get the social benefit cred
right,
too.
of course,
When you donate on Careit, we calculate how much food you've donated in total, and that translates into how much greenhouse gas emissions you've saved, how much water
right.
reduction you've contributed to. So now you get the street cred of being like, I donated to this really cool or these really cool nonprofit organizations near me this many pounds of food, which equates to this many meals. This is how many people I've served. So you get some cool, what we call environmental social good metrics to add to your company as well.
Amazing. Can you give us like stories from the field, like some really great success stories, Allison, or some of your favorites that have happened and share
Oh,
with us?
absolutely. Yeah. So, for example, I know a really great company called Food Fleet. They're operating out of Los Angeles and they have the catering trucks that go
Mm,
out and do events. They called me one year and they were doing an event at the Kentucky Derby. And they said, oh my gosh, something happened. There's so much food left over. Not enough people came. Not enough people are eating. We have tons of food left over. So, Careit was able to jump in really quick, connect them with a local nonprofit partner that we had and get that food moved onto the community, which I think it's easy to say, but like the people who saw that food, who made that food, I know when I see chefs, they put their heart into it. It's like
yeah.
it's their baby. It's a piece of their body and their blood that they're giving. So to see the happiness that they experienced of, oh my gosh, I don't have to throw this food away, it's going to feed somebody, like, and to swoop in and save the day with that is always
Mm,
a really great feeling.
huge. And so you have, so just getting back to Carrot in terms of what you do, you bridge the market between the people that need the food and the people that make the food, right?
Right.
And you use technology to manage that. Is that true?
Yeah, it's
Yeah. So how does it
free.
work?
It's free to sign up, and you can either use our website, or if you're phone savvy, you can download an app on either the iOS or the Android store.
Okay.
Create an account for your business, and then post a donation that you have available.
And then
We have
what
a
what
network.
happen, what happens after I do that? What happens
Yeah,
after?
we have a network of several thousand nonprofit organizations across the US,
Okay.
Canada, and we're now soon going to be getting into Mexico that will receive a notification of the available donation.
Got
And the
it.
beauty of this is that every nonprofit organization on any given day has a totally different need than it did the day before. Sometimes they have a driver that's available, sometimes they don't. So when you send it out to the network, now it lets the network say, I have the ability to come get this today. So
Mm,
everybody gets to kind of swap around who's available, who has space in their fridge or their freezer, who has clients that want that type of food in that quantity, and they can all jump in to the rescue and kind of self-select what food that they're picking up from you.
Right. And the nonprofit that they have to come get it themselves, or they have people that come pick it up, or
So you can either choose as a business to deliver it to them,
oh,
or the
okay, you could take it
nonprofit.
to them.
Mhm. Or the
Gotcha.
nonprofit can also send out like a volunteer or a staff driver
Right.
to pick it up
Right.
for them.
But if it's perishable, I guess I'd imagine like it has to be consumed. It either needs refrigeration
Mhm.
or it's got to be eaten.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So you still
so
have to follow the health and safety guidelines of
yeah.
food can't be taken out of the food's temperature or the food
Right.
safe temperature for longer
Right.
than 2 hours. So when you do a food donation on Careit, you do need to post what the cooking date was and whether or not you've already cooled it and refrigerated it or frozen it. And the nonprofit organization then can see this is the type of food that needs to be served right away, and they have
Gotcha.
the ability to serve it, or they'll need to get it into a refrigerator so that they can reheat it later.
Do you think there'll ever be a point in time where Carrot has like warehouses, like frozen or like big coolers, and you're actually handling the food, or you don't ever see yourself doing that?
Well, so the cool part about Careit is that we actually put together multiple stakeholders that
Yeah.
are involved in the food recovery world. So cities will oftentimes jump in and see that they have nonprofit organizations that have certain capacities,
Got
but
it.
maybe they need an additional capacity of some flash freezers or some transportation, some cooled trucks to be able to move things around. So we'll
Yeah.
often partner with a city, with an agency, with a nonprofit organization that's looking into expanding these types of capacities across individual communities so that
Hmm.
Careit doesn't have to be the supplier of that. We're giving power, money, and more resources into the control of the hyper local institutions
Gotcha.
that already exist in each community and know what it is that they need particularly.
Gotcha. And so, how big is your organization, Alyson?
Yeah, so we're kind of small but mighty. We are a software company, so by
Yeah.
and large, most of our staff members are people who are working on the development side, and then we've got a team of about five on the side of doing customer service, outreach, and then we've got a couple more people doing the
Right.
stuff like
Right.
accounting and stuff.
And so, how do you? What's the economic model for you? Like, how do you make it work?
Yeah. And when we start with a freemium, that's because by and large, the thing
Yeah.
that we want everybody to do is to donate food as much as possible.
Yeah.
But we also know that there are several clients that want an additional set of either functions on the app for it to do something, or they need my staff to actually come in and give a little bit more white glove treatment of training everybody on their team how it
Gotcha.
is that they can donate food safely, connect with more nonprofit organizations. So we've got a subscription model based on the needs of what
Got
type
it.
of client you are.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Good. And so just stepping back for a moment, Alison, just I think for organizations when they want to start thinking about, well, first of all, what I want to say is like, what is the trend out there for um, being a good community service member by reducing waste and having the social responsibility, all that kind of stuff. How does that translate to more catering sales? Let me ask that question. Is that an idea, a
I
question I
mean,
can ask?
the cool thing about being poor is that you don't necessarily always need to be poor, and there are so many people that I work with who are actually chefs or
Hmm.
who are CEOs at companies who are homeless once. Like
Hmm.
I was homeless once at one point in my life, and at one point in my life I was on SNAP benefits when I was launching Careit. I have seen so many people that have experience the kindness of a meal, and they remember that when
Yeah,
in
for
your
sure.
darkest days you remember that. And so then you might in the future, if you're able to get the resources you need to get out of that poverty state, you might become a customer at that point because you're going to remember who was nice to me when I needed them most.
Right, right. Yeah. So one piece of advice you can give to let's talk about a restaurateur, somebody who's responsible for restaurant operations, their particular store. What advice can you give them to strategically and culturally implement this kind of philosophy into their operation?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned earlier the nutrient economy, right? So while Careit started as a way to give food to people, we quickly realized that there are other ways that you can keep nutrients in the nutrient economy. And if you think of every meal, every piece of food that you pick up as a part of the nutrient economy, and think, how am I going to make sure this stays in the nutrient economy? So you've got your carrot tops that can either go into the compost, or maybe they can go towards animal feeds. Then you've got your carrot, nibs at the bottom that you might not put into a dish. Those can go into a soup stock, or you can reuse those in sort of a food waste prevention method. Then you've got your bits of the carrot soup that you made that don't get served. Those can obviously get donated. And then anything that spoils, anything that it gets timed out and you can no longer safely donate it, carrots that went to the buffet that was attended by people from the public, so you can't donate that either. It's not considered food safe. That can all go to animal feed. So Careit can kind of connect you with the different elements of people that can take your food for animal food consumption in certain places. It's not legal everywhere in the U.S. And then we can also sometimes connect you to the composters, the community-based composters, or if you have like a waste hauler that provides that as a solution for you. And then we help you track all of it so that you can see where in the nutrient economy are my nutrients going towards, and then
Correct.
instill that into all of your staff members too, that, hey, this is all nutrients that we have on our hands here. This is not waste. Nothing is ever waste.
I love it. Making the connection. Somebody had to grow that food.
Yeah.
I know,
And
Alyson.
I think seeing people like I said, go to the nonprofit organization that you're handing out food to.
Yeah, you can just
See
see
them,
what's
make a
happening.
connection with them. Go to the composter who's getting your food scraps and then turning it, or the pig food scraps, and then you're actually getting the bacon from them, the pork from them, to put into your meals. And then go see where the compost goes to. Maybe it goes to like a hazelnut farm, and like we have a partner called the Wave Foundation in Portland, and we were
Yeah,
doing this whole circular economy with Levy, where the stadiums will have food that gets donated, food that gets composted, food that gets reused, and then of course the compost turns back into nutrient stock for the hazelnut farmers that they then buy the hazelnut. And it's just so cool to see that whole circle. And when you
right.
see it with your own eyes and you connect with it on the community level, you get that emotional kind of dopamine hit of, oh my gosh, I did this. I helped make sure this continued and that there was no waste or death of this nutrient.
Yeah, no, it's a good perspective, and it should be a no-brainer for rest. I mean, look, most certainly of the restaurateurs I know, they're always the first ones to show up in their communities. They're always the first ones to, um, feed first responders, survivors. Anytime there's disaster, they're on the front. They're feeding. They're donating their food, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they show up at those moments, but so this is interesting because here we have a massive crisis. I mean, it is a disaster,
Yeah.
but it doesn't hit the mainstream media or for whatever reason, it's like it's not. Yeah, I wish we could explain that one a little bit, which is like the disconnect that we have in terms of just how urgent it is and what an impact it can make on well, on the community, which ultimately, is good for business. I mean, it's just like, it makes total sense, makes total
Yeah.
sense.
And I think in the places where you walk down the street, and to get to work, you have to walk by people that are in
Yeah,
tents
yeah,
on the sidewalk. Um, if you put in a camera crew in the news in the mainstream media and just show somebody in a tent and then show somebody eating a meal, you can't quite make that
no,
connection as
no,
well just from that visual story, as much
yeah,
as if it's your street that you
yeah,
walked in,
totally, totally,
your community, and then the food that you made, and to see that connection happen with your own eyes, I think
yeah,
tells a more
yeah,
powerful story than the
yeah,
mainstream media can tell. There is a
totally,
massive crisis, but you can't film it, you can't see it because it's so individual, that's happening all around you in a million faces.
yeah,
And putting that picture together takes a little bit of imagination and also experience in your community.
totally. Well, one of my favorite, I used to have a deli. I told you I was a deli operator. It was called Tony's Deli, 1996 to 2002 in that range. And every year, around the holidays, we would do at the community center, we would do a turkey lasagna, Caesar salads, garlic bread kind of spread for like the community. Um, and it was always one of my favorite things, because you would actually get to meet the people that
Mhm.
were walking on the streets, not necessarily coming into your store, they were just you got to meet people and you got to uh, yeah, you got to realize who the people were that were really suffering, the ones that were like you got to know them. There was a face to the name and a name to the face, and I remember those fondly, So, Alyson is wonderful. Well, it's been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your passion with us. You clearly, I love watching the way you light up when you start talking, about what it is that you love and what you're trying to do. Is there anything else that you want to share with any of our listeners that might be relevant as it relates to your mission, and maybe tell us where they can find you and how to
Yeah,
contact you? And yeah,
yeah. So Careit is free again, and I'm not coming here to sell the subscription or anything because we have a lot of people that find us and just say, "Oh, actually, yeah, that's something I need." I'm really here to say we're here to help you in your business. If you are ready to start giving back to your community at any level, it's free to sign up. You go to careit.com. It's spelled CARE, like I care, I care about it. So careit.com. And just like I said, if you can experience it with your own eyes and see that it's very easy to become a part of this small piece of the resistance of, what it is that our world seems like it's kind of crumbling down into sometimes right now. When you can see that you can make someone else's day who is desperately in need, we're ready for you.
great. Before I let you go, Allison, we do have some questions that have
Okay,
come up here.
for sure.
Um, Here's one for you. What are the best ways for catering professionals to advocate for food recovery in their cities and help grow awareness about solutions like Carrot?
Whew, good. I mean, obviously, other than just participating yourself, there might be some food policy councils that you can join, depending on the community that you're in. And it's really surprising to me which types of communities will have something like a food policy council or like I live in Chattanooga, and actually on Friday there's a food policy group that gets together. Which Chattanooga is a tiny little southern community, so it's nice to see. Another way is to make sure that when you do something cool, brag about it. And you don't necessarily think, oh, I should be bragging about it, but no, you should, because it's not just about making awareness about what you and your company has done. It's about making awareness to set an example for your peers about what they can be doing too.
Great. Next question. What kind of training or support does Carrot offer to help caterers and their staff understand the donation process and stay compliant?
So when we are working with a group in a corporate level, we have the ability to give one-on-one personal trainings with individuals and their team members virtually to make sure that they know all about food safety. But we also have some free downloads for some workbooks that are on our website as well, to understand, again, how to post a donation, how long you should post it for, what to do to make sure it's stored and packaged correctly. And then with the compliancy, I'm assuming that means with food safety, it's still the same exact food safety regulations that you do when you're serving food to people as a sales uh, as a sale.
Wonderful. Well, it's been wonderful again, Alison, having you on the show. Thank you very much for making time for us. There you have it, folks. You've met Alyson Schill, the CEO and founder over at Carrot, doing amazing things in an amazing industry. Alyson, thanks for being on the Catering Cage today.
Thank you so much, Earl.
Okay, just sit tight for 1 second. I hope I don't lose you. If I do, I'm sorry. 1 second.
Okay.